my brother. It's crazy. I don't feel insane. There's no feeling there, to be insane. Sort of. It's just I have problems adjusting to what they want of me.
I don't think I'm a danger to myself. I think I've worked through quite a bit around trying to attempt suicide. But I still doubt in my mind, what if I'm a risk to others out in the street?
Was your father you killed?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think about that much?
Quite a bit, yeah.
How long before did you get the idea to kill him?
The idea was to kill the whole family.
The building was designed to house dangerous, mentally ill people. At one time, this particular section was known as the Hospital for the Criminally Insane. The official name now is the Oak Ridge Division Mental Health Center, Penetanguishene. It's also known as the Maximum Security Division for Mentally Ill Offenders. Most of the patients who live here usually refer to it as the Ridge. The group that you'll be seeing in the social therapy unit is made up of 150 patients. They break down into different categories: 43 for murder, 10 for attempted murder, 15 for rape or other sexual offenses, 11 for arson, 23 for assault, 21 for minor offenses, and 17 transfers from other provincial mental hospitals. This is the first time that we've ever allowed TV cameras to come into the building. Most mental hospitals are pretty sensitive about reporters and press coming in for fear of adverse criticism. But the staff here have developed some remarkable programs in recent years, and we think that it's important for the public to see what's going on for themselves. Another reason that we are happy to have the public see this place is hopefully to alter their picture of the so-called insane criminal. I think they will realize that our patients are human beings and hard to distinguish from their friends and relatives on the outside.
If this is supposed to be a hospital, why does it look so much like a prison?
Well, it was built to house people that society didn't want to have out in the general public. People who were thought to be dangerous to the public, and in the architect's mind of the day, they designed it so that people wouldn't be able to escape. And in the 1930s, that meant steel bars and the structure that you see. You'll be on Fward most of the time. That's the ward where the most intensive programs are being carried on. You must remember it's only one of the 8 wards in the hospital. Programs there are more intensive and perhaps different from anything you've seen, in the sense that the patients are in therapy all day and are grouped together in a way and given medications that don't damp down their illnesses but make it more manifest both to themselves and to the patients that they live with. One of the things I think is striking here at Oak Ridge is that we try very hard to make good use of the skills that patients have as therapists for each other. We have very few professional staff here. We started that way by necessity. We now see it as an advantage. We think the patients have really very great advantages as therapists for each other. They all know that they're sick, each of them. They have a very clear idea of why they're here in hospital. They may not agree with it, particularly when they first come, but they do understand why they're here, and often it's a serious offense that was committed when they were seriously and obviously ill.
I killed a guy who didn't know. in a fight, street scene, and it was pretty horrible because I really messed them up really bad. You know, lots of stabs all over the place. You know, but I didn't mean to kill this guy. I had premeditated 2 murders in the restaurant that night. You know, my girlfriend and the guy she was with. You know, because I was insanely jealous. No, they didn't come, and I got in a fight with this other guy because his girlfriend talked to me, and he didn't like it. And I was carrying a knife, and I went outside. And he asked me to go outside, and I went outside. And then in the exchange, all I remember is that he took a couple shots at me, and bang, everything was gone. And I don't know if I was mentally blocking it or I don't want to remember, but I still can't remember just how the knifing took place. But what I do remember is picking the guy up in my arms and having the knife in my hands and asking him what happened. I distinctly remember that, and he said I knifed him.
The people you'll see in the hospital most of the time won't look ill at all. They'll look like your next door neighbor, and in fact they are. And it's one of the misconceptions that in the public's mind is that crazy mentally ill maniacs are somehow have horns in their heads and are out of control all the time. They seldom are, as you can see as you live with the patients and experience them.
I had no thoughts or feelings about how the girl would feel or how the boy would feel about being raped. It was just something that, in a way, I think you could call it an irresistible impulse. I had to do it, you know. I couldn't control myself. It was, you know, I had to do it. I felt like I was going to burst into a million pieces if I didn't, you know. One of the things that makes me go out and rape women and guys too is that, I say I'm a very vulnerable person and they hurt me, you know. And because of the crimes and everything I did in my life, I feel like I'm the lowest scum that ever walked earth, you know. And I like grabbing girls and guys and really degrading them, make them do things that they wouldn't normally do, you know, using them. I found this was a very good way to hurt people, you know, and it made me feel a little bit better at the time because I was hurting somebody else instead of being hurt.
The treatment programs, most of which take place in a highly structured format, get off to an early start on Fward. By 8 a.m., the first ward meeting is underway.
Does anybody have anything you want to bring up?
The ward meeting is the common meeting ground for the patients, and they run the meeting and carry on the business that they feel is relevant.
Fward, I don't think anybody's questioning your right to express hostility, but they're questioning the way that you express that hostility.
Because I don't cover it up with a lot of psychiatric terms, and I don't play the little word games around here.
No, there are generally no limits to what can be said in that meeting to or about anyone publicly. And the topics range very widely to criticism of the staff or the doctors or patients' feelings about each other or about the staff.
Most of the patients on Fward have been diagnosed as either schizophrenics or psychopaths. Therapy revolves around genuine encounter between these patients. By means of ward meetings, committees, and groups, these so-called insane criminals help each other. One of the most effective techniques is the dyad.
It's another attempt to structure communication where 2 patients would meet together, usually for an hour at a time in one of the patient's rooms, with no agenda as to what's to be talked about, but simply that they talk.
I'm just another nut like you.
The notion is that any 2 people, if they stay together long enough, as in a marriage, learn a great deal about each other and also, more importantly, about themselves.
I go along with what I call silly little games, and the only reason I'm going along with them because I know that they're going to let me out sometime about it, whether it's treated or untreated. And I just as soon leave here untreated than treated, because I like me the way I am, you know. I'm quite happy with myself the way I am, and I ain't going to change my life the way I function for Barker or for anybody else.
I've been alive 18 years now, and I've got nothing. What have I got to show for myself? And then I go into this act about trying to talk myself and everything, you know. I mean, I want to get out on the street too, sure, everybody does. But I want to get out and sort of live free. Like when you get out of here, right?
Don't you want to have something to sort of look forward to?
They've always been a period following the dyad of dyad evaluation, where each patient would write out observations on the previous day's dyad. Again, attempting to focus on what went on between the two of us while we were talking. Not necessarily what was said, but what was the process? How open was I? How trustful? Why was I shut down? Why did I become suspicious? Why was I so talkative about certain types of things?
Like being able to walk down the road and throw a stone when you want, or look at a bird going overhead, not through bars.
There are some patients on Fward who disagree with the techniques used, and they try to resist treatment, even though they realize there are valid reasons for their being in the hospital.
I think there's plenty of reason for me to be here. I think they had the reason for me being here, right?
What did you do?
Stabbed a guy. He was provoking me a little bit more than he should.
If I was provoking you right now, would you knife me?
I haven't got a knife.
All right, if you did.
No, I don't think I would, not in this environment, because on the street it would be more likely. The thing is that I can control myself quite as well as anybody else can anyway, you know. And if I decide I don't want to knife somebody, I won't. But if I want to, I probably will.
Do you think that if you do hurt people the way you do, society has the right to put you in a place like this?
And myself, I don't think they should throw you in a place like this and say, well, like, we're putting you in there because we want to help you, right? This is the crap they're giving us on the street. They're saying, we're putting you in there because we want to help you. And then what are they doing to help us? They're throwing us behind a few bars and saying, well, you're right over here. No, that's the help you're getting. Yeah.
They worry more about killing people than we do, see? If I killed somebody on the outside, I'd be here in Kingston or something, right? And maybe get 20 years. But it's okay for the Yanks to go over to Vietnam and say, you know, it's okay for us to kill people because we're doing it legally. Yeah, we get jailed for it, and they get a medal for it, you know.
Do you not think you should be put in jail if you kill somebody?
No.
The way the circumstances are now, I think it should be one way or the other. Either they're going to jail people for killing somebody, or they're not. I mean, everybody's just. Why should anybody else have any more right to kill anybody than me? If somebody that kills a cop now, you know, they get hung for it. What the hell right has society got to hang somebody if I don't have the right to it? I'm a human being just like they are, for Christ's sakes.
Guilt and remorse, the phenomenon of guilt and remorse, are dealt with by other patients.
What happened? The fact that I killed a person doesn't bother me. I mean, as much as it used to. It doesn't bother me in this sense that I'm not full of remorse about it. I'm not saying that I don't feel anything about it. I do. I'm not saying that it's right what I did, but I don't feel that I'm responsible for what I did, and if anybody was hurt, that's, it's not my fault. The thing that does bother me is my family. And what's going to happen to me when I get outside.
Well, really, I don't feel any guilt about people I kill. I don't know them. They mean nothing to me. It's like reading about somebody in a newspaper. I can't even remember what they look like or anything. I regret doing it, actually committing the crime. Because it was such a waste. I mean, here's two innocent people that I'd never met, never bothered me, never caused me any problem, or good people as far as I know. You know, and I just shot them for you know, because of my own, you know, anger, resentment. because of feelings I had for myself, so took it out on them. That's the only thing I really regret. I wish I hadn't have done it. I actually do, because it was such a waste. I mean, if these people would have given me a real hard time, I have to honestly say that I think, I would have felt quite justified in knocking them off, but they didn't. They didn't bother me, and hadn't caused me any problems. There doesn't seem to be, the frustrating thing is there doesn't seem to be anything you can do to make up for it, really. What can you do, You can't compensate them, sort of thing. You can't sort of make any restitution. They're dead, that's it.
Where does the pain
In treating the psychopath and the schizophrenic, it is sometimes necessary to break through lifetime patterns of defense mechanisms. Defense disruptive techniques used on Fward include drugs.
Well, drugs have been used a good deal here over the past few years. In the social therapy unit, we attempt not to use the tranquilizing drugs very much, if at all. We do attempt to use other drugs which bring out more clearly the illness that lies often concealed beneath the surface.
But I had no place to go, that nobody really cared for me, I burnt down my mother's house.
You can't patch people together in Oak Ridge and hope that they don't have another relapse, or if they do, that somehow it'll be okay. We want people either not to relapse, or if they're going to relapse, to have enough insight and awareness that they're caving in psychologically to find help before something disastrous happens.
And I got him, and I stabbed him in the arm, in a laneway. He had $10. Then you can stab a guy for $10 nowadays? Jesus Christ, it's too much.
We have used drugs like sodium amytal and methadone, a combination of dexamyl and tafranil, and scopolamine, and occasionally LSD, as drugs to attempt to get beneath the surface and dredge up material that's theoretically in the unconscious.
Makes me want to kill myself because I'm so stupid. So stupid that I did all this stuff eat at me. A lot of people told me they loved me. I never believed them. Except one. Because that meant the world to me. Like to have somebody say them 3 words, I love you.
These patients are in a small room measuring 8 feet by 10 feet. There are no doors and no windows that can be seen from the inside. Food is sucked in through straws placed in small holes around the room. An open toilet and a wash basin are in one corner. A two-way mirror in the ceiling and videotape cameras in the walls allow for observation of these patients. This room is known as the capsule.
Well, the capsule is probably one of the most intensive types of programs that have been developed here in Oak Ridge. It's like a continuous dyad with no contact with the outside, and patients volunteer to go into it for either an indefinite period of time to be established by the staff or a fixed period of time of 1 or 2 weeks. Prolonged exposure to the same people with day in, day out produces an immediacy and a confrontation that has really very profound effects with many patients.
I couldn't accept that. I never could accept that. I never will. I'll never tell anybody about that.
Couldn't accept what, Fred?
That she didn't love me, right? I did all kinds of things to get her to love me. To get accepted, right? The most important thing. Everybody wants to be accepted by somebody, to be loved, Even if that love doesn't mean anything.
Patients would ask to go in with perhaps one other patient or with several patients around a particular type of problem with a particular objective. Being able to use videotape any or all the time is a great asset to be able to capture all the movement, all the activity, all the verbal or nonverbal communication, and to be able to feed it back to the patients. Mostly it's the intensity of contact which I don't think really directly gets patients well, but it does produce a far more clear-cut image in the patient's mind of the ways in which he's sick, ways in which he in fact drives others away from him.
Headache to think about.
To think about your father?
Yeah.
Do you know what?
It takes a long time to hate somebody. Takes a lot of work.
I feel treated right now? No, I don't.
Sodium amytal and methadone and a stay in the capsule resulted in this apparently dramatic reaction.
Well, what you're seeing here looks very dramatic and very real, but in fact, the patients and the staff that have known Freddie for a number of years see this really as a political statement, and there's not really much substance to it psychologically.
What are you giving these guys drugs for, right? You recommend all these people, right? I've been on 25, 27, 100 days, I don't know, right? But I know, I might show you that these drugs don't do anything to me, right?
The sodium amytal drug treatments do produce an event around which it's necessary for other patients to be caring and to look after the person. It always strikes me the limits to which patients will go in caring for each other, often where there's a risk of getting punched in the nose.
That seems to give me something, right? That seems to me to say that, they trust me, right? That's the whole thing around here. Can't you see that with me? You gotta trust me, right? You gotta trust me teaching on each word. All that stuff, right? Anybody says they trust me down there, I don't care what happens, I just won't change, right? I'll never change for 1 minute.
At the end of the Fward corridor is a room about 4 yards by 20. They call it the sunroom. And this one room is home, sometimes for months at a time, for a special group of patients.
There are patients who are sick in a way, generally psychotic, which doesn't lend itself to fitting into anywhere where there are rules or regulations or patterns of behavior that are expected of them. We keep a number of patients in the sunroom who, for one reason or another, want to be there, who we think are helpful with these more acutely disturbed patients. And they live there as a community together, around the clock, able to talk with each other anytime during the day or night in a group that generally becomes fairly close and cohesive in a gentle and quiet way. The one thing is laid on, they come out into the capsule for an hour each day and just talk, and that's videotaped, and they watch their own discussion. Often the most useful discussion, I think, goes on late evening or even after lockup. How do you feel actually now about having shot your father?
I still find it very difficult to believe.
Do you actually think maybe he isn't dead, or?
I try to tell myself that sometimes.
Do you ever cry?
It's happened.
What?
I don't cry very often, and I cry.
What has brought, in what sort of situation do you cry about it?
I don't know, it's just the whole thing. It just comes up in emotion, I guess.
Here in the sunroom?
Well, it's only happened once here in the sunroom.
Like I was telling you about getting the alien shocks in my head.
The alien shots in your head? Shocks in your head.
I got 4 of them. Like, we know about it. Going through the TV with my mind and that, with the source.
With the source?
Well, I call it the source. Something like
source of power? Or?
Well, it's something like electricity, extra or something, It's like miracles.
You've been in mental hospitals for off and on for, what, 10 years?
Since 65, I think.
And they sent you here from, what, Belford Falls?
Well.
What do you think of the sunroom? How do you find it over here?
I'm getting better at it by talking to the people here.
What do you talk about?
Oh, different things. Me and Daryl talk, a lot. He's on some drug that helps him talk a lot.
These patients are not allowed to talk to any of the other patients on Fward. These are the troublemakers, the management problems. Their unit is referred to as the management program.
The beef is, what is the management here for, right?
Management is here for people who bugger up on another ward.
Okay.
It's a punishment.
It's an attempt to manage the patients who can't manage or don't manage in any of the programs that are functioning. They think of themselves as the filthy 15 or the dirty dozen.
Nobody is beefing about that whether we listen or whether we don't listen. We're supposed to listen no matter where we are. But we don't. right?
In the older days, before there was a special place for guys who couldn't function, you'd often medicate them or isolate them into a single room if they want to fight with people. Now, by having those people grouped together in a group, they seem both to be reasonably cheerful and hopefully learning something about why they went there.
I don't know what sedatives run.
The purpose is to keep the management group an unpopular place to be. We've had to have purges of privileges in the thing to make it a more unpopular group.
Can't read a newspaper. We can't watch TV. We can't eat off plastic dishes. We just have no privileges. The incentive here is to get off of the ward onto another ward where you have all these privileges. The only way you start giving them little ones, and you haven't got no more management. As far as the deterrence, if I go down to another ward now and I bugger up on a ward and they say we're going to send you up to management, I'd say great, beautiful, because management, in my opinion, is not as strict as it should be. Because you should be out here scrubbing floors, you should be scrubbing walls from morning till night, and then you got a management.
They spend much of their time talking together as to why their management problems and what happened on the other ward, and talking, I think, just in general terms about the hospital.
Look, he's got a valid point.
He's got a valid point, and I think you should recognize it as a valid point.
I recognize the validity of his point, but I don't happen to agree with it. I think if you want to generalize it and capsulize it in that way, I think it's just
You're
so
saying
much
to
more
people, you're saying to men who have done a little bit of time, and in some cases have done a lot of time, we don't want you to feel that you're in a prison or a jail. But when that door slides on its tracks at night, it sounds exactly the same as any other jail in the world. When you look out those barred windows, it looks exactly the same. When you sit in this 5-wall little cell here with a toilet that's sitting on a floor and a push-button sink and a push-button toilet, it's exactly the same as a jail. When the man wears a blue uniform, that brings back the memories of jail. And when you get threats like, if you don't do that, you will end up in a lockup. Which in its essence is saying, if you don't cooperate with us, you're going to the hole.
And what does society say?
What not to say?
What does society say? The society says if you don't abide by their bloody norms, they're going to put you in jail. If you go out and rob someplace, you think they're not going to put you in jail? You go out and kill somebody, you think they're not going to put you in jail? They have all kinds of deterrents too.
What are we in, a hospital or jail?
Realistically speaking, every place that you go to will have a bunch of deterrents, and this here is one of our deterrents. It's better than bouncing people around this hospital for year after year or month after month, and that's been done. It's better than locking people up for months at a time or years at a time, and that's been done. It's better than putting people on Noslin for long periods of time or heavy tranquilizers in order to shut them up, and that's been done. They've been trying all kinds of ways.
Granted.
And I think this is a more humane way than what the other ways were.
In an age when progress in the care and treatment of the mentally ill has been measurable in terms of increased freedom from physical restraints, it is somewhat surprising to see as a valuable aid in the intensive treatment program on Fward, handcuffs.
4 or 5 years ago, we had programs of increasing intensity where patients were upset more frequently. And everyone's concern was that the person who was upset might hurt himself or someone else. One day, one of the patients said, why don't we handcuff an upset patient to a patient who's less upset? It sounded ridiculous. We all laughed at the notion at the beginning, and then we developed such cuffs. And for 4 years now, this has been a very reliable way of pairing together patients who are upset. The patients make the decisions about who's upset enough to go on cuffs. They make the decisions about who's to be paired with him when he's on cuffs and for how long he should stay on cuffs, and actually the type of cuffing. There's some varieties depending on the severity of the upset. With the use of cuffs, we can keep the patient safe and out with his treatment group so that he can't escape psychologically or physically.
I think mostly of the way you talk, right? Just letting it flow from you, as if you owned all the words in the world. They're your personal property, and you just kind of make them dance for you.
But a mirror group is simply an attempt to have patients sit down periodically and say as honestly as they can what they really feel about the other people in the group.
I think Ray Hunt's doomed. I don't think he's going to make it. I've told him not to. I don't think Ray has a chance unless something, drastic happens to him, or maybe for him. I think
it always is striking to see the sensitivity and the insight that patients have into each other, particularly when it's given in a gentle and a quiet and hopefully somewhat affectionate way, certainly not a hostile or abrasive way in those moments, so that a person can reflect on what his friends say.
Personally, I like Rayhan. I think he's a pretty neat guy. I think this is going to be his last trip to this bunkhouse. I think, well, how many times did you try to kill yourself? 4? 3?
Oh, I lost count.
Yeah.
Numerous little misdemeanors.
I think really he feels pretty miserable. That's too bad. I think he's one of the most trustworthy people on the ward. Really. I think the last thing he'd do is screw you around. I remember in those trust groups they were making up, you know. I looked around. Who do I trust? Nobody. I think I trust Rayhan. I don't, you know, want to be his best friend, or I don't want monopolizing all my time or anything. That's, you know, why I don't like saying things like this to you. But, you know, I think you're a pretty good guy, really. That's all.
The disturbed patients in the capsule and the sunroom are constantly observed by way of closed-circuit television. They are watched during the night by other patients.
When something goes wrong, we always have a flashlight there on the TV there. We flick that up the corridor for the staff to see. The staff comes down and investigates what's wrong. If there's a hassle or something like that, fight in the sunroom. They give us the keys and we go in, straighten it out. If necessary, we have to put the guy on cuffs, we'll put them on cuffs. If it gets right out of hand, the staff notifies other staff in the hospital. They come up and give the person a needle probably and put them out for the night.
Probably one of the main things they want all patients to have is concern for other people. So in this respect, it is a treatment situation. They're quite frank here, though. They operate with a very small staff, and they told me that they expect patients to become increasingly more valuable to them, so they can use them in treatment of other patients as well. I think it's something they feel is necessary with so many long-term patients and what have you, that they make the maximum use of their assets they have, and here at the assets are patients.
How do you feel about this kind of responsibility, looking after other patients?
I like the job. I've been on it for 10 months. I like helping the patients, or trying to help them when they're upset, talking to them, supporting them. It's a pretty good job. It's interesting. I learned a bit about myself on this job.
What was your diagnosis?
Paranoid schizophrenic.
What got you here?
I broke into a gun shop and shot at police officers. I don't know why I done it. I thought about it lots of times. But I don't know, I guess it's just the cops.
You recognize it now as a sick act, do you, the shooting at the policeman?
Yeah, I didn't when I came in. When they told me that I was certified as mentally ill, that I was a danger to myself and to others. I didn't believe it, I didn't want to believe it. But I realize it now that it was a mistake. But I still don't know why I done it.
The use of patients as night observers and in other roles around the hospital in responsible positions in caring for other patients has been one of the really exciting, I think, changes here in the hospital in its general acceptance by both the patients and the staff. It's a two-way street. We make use of the skills and the stability of certain patients to do a responsible job, and we rely on them, and they know that, and that brings forth in patients who perhaps have never been trusted a great feeling of genuine support and confidence in themselves, that we put that very real trust in them.
They're opening up the Ridge, to the public every year, open house, and every so often you see bunches of visitors coming through. And still, since almost every time, you're going to see a large number of them, going through and looking at us, like, holy crazy, what are these guys, and expecting the worst from us, to go around like babbling fools or screaming all over the place or trying to hit them or some bullshit like that, and...
One experience I had, and that was 2 years ago, I was guiding, like touring with the people and taking a bunch of people around, and one of the young ladies or young girls asked me if I worked here as a staff. And I said, no, I said, I'm a patient. And she looked at me as if, oh, what's this, or the patient guiding us around. And then she became less timid or less shy or less scared, asked me what I was in for, and I told her I was in here for a murder. And the reaction, you know, just the facial reaction on these people was unbelievable, you know. I thought somehow I was close to them, you know, and in the aspect of taking them around. And as soon as I said I was in for murder, the depth wasn't there. It was the depth in the reverse. It was that far away, you know. They hunched together, and you know, and I felt really bad. I really felt like I was a bad person because I had told them, being honest about what I was in here for.
I remember the year Victor Hoffman came in, you know, there was all that publicity around him, you know, being transferred from Saskatchewan to here. Shortly after, there was an open house. I remember how many of these girls, especially high school kids, you know, were all kind of curiosity seekers, you know. Where's Victor Hoffman, you know? I felt like putting on a big tag, I'm Victor Hoffman, you know, scaring the hell out of them, you know, just to put them back down, you know. They don't seem to stop to think, you know, Victor Hoffman is just not a guy, you know. He's okay, there's something wrong with his head, but what the hell?
We are human, you know, and we do have feelings, and we do live, and we do speak, and we do react, and we do a number of things that everybody else does, you know. And why we do these things is because we are human.
Increasingly over the last few years, we've had groups of outside people, school kids and other members of the community coming through, and we always try to have our patients freed up, or enough of them, from the program to show the visitors through. I think that the image created by the mass media at the time of the really tragic events that occurred to put people in a hospital like this sustains an image that our patients are always as out of control and wild and dangerous as they were at that moment. It simply isn't true. As you can see by living here, our patients are sensible, reasonable people almost all the time.
It's a good thing to have people come in here because people will get a lot of weird ideas of what the place is all about. They think that everybody in this place, which a lot of people call a maximum security mental hospital for the criminally insane, it gives people a better idea of what the place is really about, and may make it a lot easier on the people when they get out in the street.
Foster, what happens to girls that are found criminally insane?
Well, they're usually held at the regional hospitals.
Most of the people that I've seen come here for visits or whatever to see the hospital. I've kind of looked at it from a monkey's point of view, sitting in a cage. You know, here these people are coming to see the little monkey in a cage.
Did you feel that you learned a lot? That, you know, they really do teach you a lot while you're here?
Well, yeah, I've learned a lot since I've been here. I haven't made any changes, and that's what they want. And I'm not planning on making any changes.
Actually, I really appreciate you people coming in here. Sometimes, when I'm feeling bad, I cut down people for coming in here. But altogether, I think we need people to come in here. It's just to sort of show them that we aren't all that crazy. And I'd really like you to come back.
Mr. Brenner was admitted to this hospital in January 1962.
Dave Brenner may soon be released from the range. This conference has been called to help decide if he should be allowed to leave. His fellow patients, along with the staff, will have a say in the eventual decision. The conference begins with a detailed recounting of Dave's background and case history.
At that time, he was diagnosed as a personality trait disturbance, emotionally unstable personality. Prior to his joining the Army, he claims to have been engaged and in love with a girl some 2 years his junior. He claims to have been very jealous of her. By April of '60, the situation began to deteriorate, with the consequence that the girl gave him his ring back. Following this, he states that he didn't care what happened to him. He stated that for a period, he spent much of his time walking around streets with a loaded revolver, hoping to meet the person who had stolen his girlfriend.
Mr. Brenner states that all he could think about was killing this individual. He states that some 8 days later he killed a man whom he had never seen before. The victim was in no way concerned with the patient's life, and it wasn't until the next morning that he knew the man's name. It has been the pattern with this patient, his initial contact at conference, and an individual interview, that he is bristling with hostility. When his opinion was asked, he was almost forcing himself into this role and deliberately working up the situation. However, he becomes much more reasonable and the hostility tends to drop as he continues to talk. At conference, he expressed the desire to stay in this hospital.
Whether or not Dave will be released depends to a great extent on how he has changed since coming to the Ridge. A before and after picture is very quickly established.
In those days, he used to sort of talk about wanting to kill the person that stole his girlfriend and wanting to do his girlfriend in. Often it would go back to sort of the old jailhousey type about trying to impress people with how tough he was and whatnot. When I came in '65, and I think he was on the original G-Ward program then, he was known as the fastest fists in the building. I think that you had to kind of watch what you said to him or he'd fly off the handle. Well, let's have a talk with Dave. David, you might join us. You've been sitting patiently while your peers have been picking over the pieces. What feelings has that generated in you to hear your background presented and to hear them discussing it?
Well, just a whole raft of things sort of came back up.
Mental illness can be studied and explained by experts. It is probably understood best by the people who are mentally ill. And so at this conference, the conference that may recommend Dave's release, some of the most interesting questions are asked by the other patients on the ward.
You run into a situation outside where there's no one there to listen when you run into a bind. How are you going to handle it?
It's pretty hypothetical, really, because I don't know. But like judging from right in here and putting it outside, I think I do run into those things, and sometimes I have to psychoanalyze my own head as to what is right and what is wrong.
Well, would you be able? Do you think you'd be able to handle that situation, right? Or would you run down to the beverage room and?
No, I think I would do my best to do it. Again, I can't get into the thing of saying bluntly I won't. You know. Well, I don't think I'm going to get in. Well, I know I'm not going to get into the situation I got into before, right? I think that was basically immature. It cost me a lot of having to go through a lot. It took a human life, right?
What are your feelings about not being hung?
At first, I was pretty pissed off at it. I think I'd resigned myself to the fact that I was going to be hung. You know, I mean, you live in that situation for so long, you resign yourself to be dead, right? And then you go through I went through a period of time that I wished I would have been dead. And I think I was projecting it onto people, but I couldn't do it myself. I think I was chicken or you put your own words on it, right? Now I think it's something else again.
What?
I think I can find happiness. I think there are people that care about me. Yeah.
Do you think you're ready for release now?
Straight out to the street?
No.
No, I wouldn't think I'd go straight out to the street.
Are you ready to start a rehabilitation program out of Oak Ridge now? Do you think?
Fairly soon.
Okay, do you mind if we excuse you for a minute back to there and discuss what the group here feels in terms of your safety for release and the timing for rehabilitation, or transfer for rehabilitation?
Right. And parole.
Thanks, David. Opinions then, we could, about
what, if any, illness you still see which is treatable potentially, and how and where it should be treated, or in the absence of that, what's the timing for rehabilitation and the nature of that rehabilitation?
Dave, in my opinion, should be transferred to a regional hospital with some very strict sort of guidelines for his rehabilitation, which I think should be centered around involvement with both sexes.
I think Dave's still pretty sick, really. I think I don't see that much of a change in, like, I've seen a lot of change in him, but the picture of him that you presented, you know, from 1960 hasn't altered that much, I don't think. You know, there's still the suspicion, tenseness, and the other things that you were talking about, you know, sort of, he doesn't come out and threaten people, you know, I'm going to punch your head in. He sort of smiles at him, you know, that funny little threatening smile now. I think he still has a lot of the same feelings.
I think Dave's the kind of guy that shouldn't get off the string for a number of years. I think he should be followed up extremely closely. And that if there's any indications that the controls are slipping, then I think that should be taken into consideration. He can always be moved back to the ridge.
The final decision, Dave is not yet ready for release.
No, we don't think Dave is really safe for release at this point. But there's no question that he's progressing in his treatment and that there will be a time when he should be out in society. In fact, one of the most persistent misconceptions about Penetang is that we're just a dumping ground for hopeless cases or a dead-end place. Now, it's true that for the first 30 years, no one charged with a capital offense was ever released from here. But today, there's 150 patients leaving every year after treatment. And many of those have killed or raped while they were mentally ill. They're well again, and they're able to be safe and useful members of society. We think we're developing programs here in which the keepers and the kept, so to speak, are helpful to each other. And it's really very gratifying to see visitors coming from all over North America, and increasingly from other countries, to see what we're doing here. But what's probably more important is that there seems to be some basis for hope for the people that society deems too dangerous to be free. There is, we think, real hope that patients here are breaking out of the psychological prison of indifference to the feelings of others, a prison which to a greater or lesser extent confines us all.